Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into something we all use constantly, maybe without thinking too much about the security behind it. Wi-Fi, the IEEE 802.11 standard.
It's everywhere, isn't it? Homes, offices, coffee shops,
Mm.
super convenient, low cost to set up. Just need an access point, your device, and you're connected.
But that convenience, it hides a pretty significant risk, doesn't it? You've mentioned before that wireless is just inherently riskier than plugging in a cable.
It really is, fundamentally.
Sure.
Think about it. Wired data travels down a contained path, a copper cable. Radio waves, they broadcast out
Yeah.
everywhere.
Omnidirectionally, so anyone nearby can potentially listen in.
Exactly. Eavesdropping is trivial compared to tapping a wire. And those radio signals, they don't conveniently stop at the walls of your building. They bleed out.
Right into the street, the parking lot.
And the tools to sniff out and attack Wi-Fi, they're cheap, they're easy to get. It's a much softer target, physically speaking.
Okay, so that sets the stage. We're trying to secure this broadcast medium. Let's talk about how we've tried to do that over the years, starting with the original attempt, WEP.
WEP, Wired Equivalent Privacy. Sounds reassuring, doesn't it? Introduced way back in 1999.
The idea was simple enough, right? A shared secret key, like a password, used to encrypt the data with the RC4 cipher.
Yes, a 40 or 104-bit key. But to make sure each packet looked different, even if the data was the same, they mixed that key with something called an initialization vector, an IV.
A short number, supposed to be random for each packet.
Supposed to be. But here's the fatal flaw. That IV was only 24 bits long.
24 bits. That sounds tiny now. Was that like a mistake or a limitation back then?
It was a catastrophic design choice. 24 bits gives you, what, just under 17 million possibilities? On any reasonably busy network, you'd start repeating those lies really, really quickly, sometimes in minutes.
Okay, and here's the key for you listening. If the IV repeats, the entire encryption key used for that packet repeats. That's the IV reuse attack, right?
Precisely. If an attacker captures two packets encrypted with the exact same IV, they've got two ciphertexts, C1 and C2. Because the key stream K, generated from the shared key and the IV is the same, C1, P1 XOR K, and C2 equal P2 XOR K.
So if they XOR C1 and C2 together,
The K cancels out. They're left with C1 XOR C2 equals P1 XOR P2, the XOR of the two original plain texts.
and getting P1 XOR P2 doesn't give them the original data directly, but it gives them enough information.
More than enough. Using statistical analysis on that P1 XOR P2 stream, especially with known plaintext structures, they could perform key recovery attacks and find the actual secret WEP key, often in just a few minutes.
So WEP wasn't just weak, it was fundamentally broken almost from the start.
Completely broken, obsolete, which led to a bit of a panic and the rush towards TKP.
TKP, Temporal Key Integrity Protocol. This was the patch, the band-aid for WEP, designed to work on the same old hardware.
Yeah, exactly. It was a software upgrade. The main goal was to fix those critical WEP flaws while still using the underlying RC4 cipher, because changing the hardware wasn't feasible quickly.
So what did TKP do differently, if the IV was the main problem?
They tackled that head on. They increased the IV size from 24 bits to 48 bits. That's a huge jump, making IV reuse much, much less likely.
48 bits. Okay, that's exponentially more combinations.
Right. They also introduced dynamic key generation keys changed over time and per packet key mixing, so each packet's key was more unique. And importantly, they replaced WEP's weak integrity check, CRC32, with a proper message integrity check, or MIC, called Michael.
Michael, okay. So, better IV, changing keys, real integrity checks, sounds like a decent improvement. Why is TKP also considered, dead now?
Because it was still built on RC4. Even with all the bandages TKI applied, RC4 itself has known cryptographic weaknesses. Researchers eventually found ways to attack TKP2, though it was much harder than WEP. It bought time, but it wasn't the long-term fix.
So the real fix needed a stronger foundation, which brings us to WPA2.
WPA2, this is the big leap.
Yeah.
Mandatory AES encryption.
AES, Advanced Encryption Standard, that's the gold standard used by governments, banks.
It's exactly.
Yeah.
WPA2 mandated the use of AES, specifically in a mode called CCMP, which provides both confidentiality and integrity. Though technically, WPA2 could still use TKP for backward compatibility with older devices.
But the preferred secure method was AES. How did it handle the keys? Still a pre-shared key like WEP.
Yes, in the common personal mode, you still use a pre-shared key, or PSK basically, your Wi-Fi password. But the way it uses that key is much smarter, through the four-way handshake.
Ah, the four-way handshake. Can you walk us through that briefly? How does it avoid sending the password over the air?
Sure. When your device connects, it and the access point exchange a series of messages. They use the PSK you both know, along with some random numbers they generate on the fly called nonces. Through some cryptographic magic, they both independently derive the same session keys, specifically the pairwise transient key, or PTK, for encrypting your data without ever transmitting the actual PSK.
Okay, so the password itself never flies through the airwaves. That's a huge improvement over WEP. But WPA2 still had a major vulnerability, especially in that PSK mode.
It did. The Achilles heel, offline dictionary attacks.
Explain that. If the password isn't sent, how can they attack it?
An attacker just needs to capture those first few messages of the four-way handshake. They don't need the whole session. They take that captured handshake offline back to their own powerful computer.
And then,
Then they just start guessing passwords. They run lists of common passwords, dictionary words, brute force combinations, using the captured handshake data to check if a guess is correct. The real network never sees these attempts.
so if you used a weak password like password 123, even with strong AES encryption, someone could crack it offline just by capturing that initial connection handshake.
Absolutely. Your security was only as strong as your password's resistance to guessing. Plus, WPA2 wasn't great against insider threats. Vulnerabilities like Hole 196 showed that someone already on the network could potentially decrypt traffic between other users. It focused mainly on keeping outsiders out.
Which, finally, leads us to the current standard, WPA3. Mandatory for certified devices since mid-2020. What's the headline feature that fixes that WPA2 password problem?
SAE, simultaneous authentication of equals. This completely replaces the old PSK four-way handshake method for key establishment in WPA3 Personal.
And SAE is specifically designed to resist those offline attacks.
Yes. The math behind SAE makes it computationally infeasible to do that kind of offline dictionary attack. An attacker has to interact with the network for each guess, which makes brute forcing incredibly slow and easy to detect. It's a massive security upgrade.
That's huge, but WPA3 offers something else really powerful. Forward secrecy. What does that mean practically?
Forward secrecy is fantastic. It means that even if an attacker somehow compromises your current WPA3 password or keys in the future, they cannot use that information to go back and decrypt traffic they might have captured in the past.
Wow, so capturing encrypted data today is useless for them even if they break in next year?
Exactly. Each session's encryption keys are ephemeral and not derivable from the long-term key after the session ends. It protects your past communications.
Okay, SAE stops offline attacks, forward secrecy protects past data. What about those annoying open networks in public places?
WPA3 tackles that too, with OWE, opportunistic wireless encryption.
Opportunistic. So it works even if there's no password, like at a coffee shop.
Correct. OWE provides individualized encryption between your device and the AP on open networks. It happens automatically in the background. You don't enter a password, but your traffic is encrypted, preventing casual eavesdropping. It makes open networks much safer.
That's a really practical improvement. WPA3 also offers stronger encryption options, right?
Yeah, it supports optional 192-bit encryption for enterprise environments needing higher security, and things like DPP device provisioning protocol for easier, secure onboarding of devices using QR codes or NFC instead of typing passwords.
Now, quickly, for larger organizations, there's also WPA Enterprise Mode, often using something called 802.1x. Can you sketch out how that works? It's not just about a shared password.
Right, 802.1x is much more robust for managed environments. Think of three roles: the supplicant, your device; the authenticator, the access point; and an authentication server, usually radios. The AP basically blocks all your traffic initially. It acts as a gatekeeper, passing your credentials, which could be a username, password, or often a digital certificate, back to the Radius server. Only if the Radius server says, yes, this user device is authorized, does the AP open the gate and let your traffic onto the network.
So it's individual authentication per user or device managed centrally. Much more secure than just a shared password for everyone.
Definitely. Crucial for corporate or campus networks.
All right, we've covered the protocols, WEP's failures, TKIP's patches, WPA2's strengths and weaknesses, and WPA3's modern defenses. But you said earlier, security isn't just the protocol. It's physics. It's geography.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the real-world attacks that bypass encryption sometimes.
Let's start with that evocative one, the parking lot attack.
It sounds dramatic, but it's real. As we said, Wi-Fi signals leak outside buildings. Attackers can literally sit in their car or an adjacent building with a decent antenna and capture your network traffic.
Bypassing the physical security of the building entirely?
Completely. They might sniff sensitive data, or even try to attack devices or gain access to the internal network from that seemingly public space. Your firewall protecting the wired network edge is irrelevant if they can hop onto the wireless network from outside.
Scary stuff. What about threats from inside the perimeter, or seemingly inside, like rogue access points?
Rogue APs are a classic problem. Someone, maybe a malicious actor, maybe just an employee trying to be helpful, plugs an unauthorized wireless router into the corporate network jack under their desk.
Creating an unsecured entry point.
Exactly. Or an attacker sets up their own AP nearby, maybe with a stronger signal or the same network name, SSID, trying to trick legitimate users into connecting to their malicious device instead of the real one.
A sort of evil twin network.
Precisely. If they succeed, they're in a man-in-the-middle position, potentially capturing login credentials, injecting malware.
And sometimes, to get users onto that rogue AP, attackers use another nasty trick, the de-authentication attack. How does that work? Can they just kick people off the real network?
Shockingly, yes. The Wi-Fi standard includes management frames for things like connecting, disconnecting, and the de-authenticate frame, which tells a device to drop its connection, requires no authentication or encryption.
Wait, seriously, anyone can send a fake get off the network message?
Anyone within radio range can forge that frame, pretending to be the AP kicking the client off, or the client telling the AP it's leaving. It forces the target device offline instantly.
That seems like a massive oversight in the standard itself.
It is, and attackers use it all the time, often to disrupt users and make them desperate enough to connect to the attacker's rogue AP when they try to reconnect.
Okay, what other common attacks should people be aware of?
Well, there's the Wi-Fi Protected Setup, or WPS, vulnerability, remember that. The push button or PIN code method to easily connect devices.
Yeah, it's supposed to make it simple.
Too simple, especially the PIN method. It's usually an 8-digit PIN, but it's often validated in 2 4-digit halves. That makes it incredibly easy to brute force with automated tools. Many routers had WPS enabled by default. It's low-hanging fruit for attackers.
So convenience bites back again. Disable WPS if you don't absolutely need it.
Definitely. And finally, let's not forget the SSID itself, the network name.
How can the name be a flaw? It's just a name.
Well, first, leaving the default SSID, like Linksys or Netgear, screens potentially unconfigured and vulnerable device to attackers. But more subtly, the SSID is broadcast in the clear, always, even with WPA3.
Right, so anyone scanning can see it.
And if you use a name that gives away information, like accounting fourth floor or Dev Network East Wing, well, you've just done the attacker's reconnaissance for them. You've told them where valuable targets might be. It's a trade-off between making it easy for your users or IT staff and giving away clues.
Okay, so the protocols are crucial, but controlling the physical space, hardening configurations, and being smart about naming are just as vital. Let's structure the defense. How should organizations think about securing Wi-Fi across its lifecycle, starting right from the design phase?
Design is about prevention. First rule, treat the WLAN as an untrusted network zone. Always segment it from your critical wired networks using firewalls.
Firewalls between wireless and wired. What should they block?
Things that attackers use for mapping the network. Block ARP broadcasts from wireless reaching wired, block ICMP scans, filter unnecessary protocols between the zones, make it hard for someone on the Wi-Fi to easily see or probe the rest of your infrastructure.
And tackling that signal leakage problem we talked about, the parking lot attack vector.
That's about RF management. Use directional antennas where possible, pointing signals inwards, not outwards. Carefully tune the transmission power of your APs. You want enough coverage for legitimate users, but not so much that it floods the surrounding area unnecessarily. Minimal required power is key.
Good point. Also, planning AP placement to segment coverage areas.
Yes, proper cell planning helps balance user load, but it also contains the blast radius if one AP is compromised or hit with a denial of service attack. Don't put all your eggs, or users, under one giant high-power AP if you can avoid it.
Makes sense. Now moving to the deployment phase. You've designed the network, now you're installing the gear. What's critical here?
Hardening, hardening, hardening. First, physical security. Lock up those APs. If one gets stolen, configuration data, maybe even keys, could be extracted from it.
Don't just leave them sitting on ceiling tiles.
Exactly. Then, the configuration checklist. Change the default administrator passwords, change the default SSIDs, use strong WPA3 passphrases, or better yet, 802.1x. Rotate encryption keys periodically. Disable management interfaces you don't use, especially insecure ones like Telnet or HTTP. Use SSH and HTTPS. And enable logging, sending those logs to a secure central server, not just storing them locally on the AP where they can be wiped.
What about configuring the client side or settings on the AP that affect
Definitely
clients?
disable ad hoc or peer-to-peer mode on client devices if possible. You want them talking through the AP, not directly to each other. And use features like client isolation of the AP. This prevents devices connected to the same AP from talking directly to each other.
Ah, blocking lateral movement. So if one laptop gets compromised, it can't easily attack another laptop on the same Wi-Fi.
Precisely. It forces traffic up through the AP and potentially through internal firewalls, even for devices in the same room. Also, deploy security patches promptly for both APs and clients. And consider a wireless intrusion detection system, a WWIS.
WIs, what does that look for?
It monitors the airways for anomalies. Things like rogue APs popping up, suspicious deauthentication floods,
Yeah.
known attack signatures, devices using weak protocols like WEP. It's like a security camera for your radio frequency space.
Okay, design, deployment, now the network is up and running. What's involved in the operation phase for ongoing security?
Vigilance in process. A big part is user education. Teach your users about the risks, company policies for wireless use, the dangers of connecting to unknown public hotspots.
The human firewall.
It's critical.
Mhm.
On the technical side, maintain a strict inventory of all authorized wireless devices and APs. You can't spot a rogue if you don't know what's legitimate. Conduct regular security audits, physically walk around, use scanning tools, specifically looking for unauthorized devices.
And review those logs you set up during deployment.
Absolutely. Regularly check firewall logs, radius authentication logs, YDs alerts for anything suspicious. Look for patterns, failed logins, unexpected traffic. It's an ongoing effort, not a one-time setup.
We've definitely covered a lot of ground here, from the frankly disastrous beginnings of WPP with its tiny IV, through the stopgap of TKIP, the big step up with WPA2 and AES, and finally landing on WPO3 with SAE and forward secrecy solving some long-standing problems.
The journey of the protocols themselves is quite a story. But hopefully the key takeaway for you listening is that security today means demanding WPA3 ES, yes, but also layering that with smart design, careful deployment, and continuous operational checks.
Right, the technology alone isn't enough. That example of the SSID name accounting fourth floor really highlights the tension. It makes life easier for IT, maybe, but it's a gift to an attacker doing reconnaissance.
It perfectly illustrates that balance. The strongest encryption doesn't help if you advertise your valuable targets or leave the physical AP unlocked in a closet.
Which brings us to our final thought for you today. We constantly face this push and pull between making things convenient, easy to manage, easy to use, and making them truly secure. Think about your own environment, the systems you manage or use. How does that inherent tension between operational convenience and robust security shape the technical choices you make or the risks you implicitly accept every day? Something to consider until our next deep dive.